This next video is gonna get a vexed badge. I'm creating this badge because I don't want people to think that this kind of video is the video that I'll be doing on my channel all the time. I'm gonna badge these videos. You can hop out of the video so that you don't, if you don't really like, let's say, subjective opinions about things. This video, I'm not gonna be objective. I didn't take all the time necessary to study the concepts, and the people that wrote it spend all that time on this concept. In the beginning of the script, I was going to, and then as things sort of crept along and I heard the story about it, and then the context and the way I found it, I realized I didn't want to spend my time on it in any other way than to talk about the foundation of it and the format and what I see going on. And that's what I did. So if you want to understand the idea better, do your own deep dive and do your own objective evaluation of it, because I don't plan on being objective about this. I think it started out as a good plan, and then the writers of the plan towed the line for religion. And I don't consider religion to be universal. Religion is not universal. Religion is parading of particularity as universality. So it pretends that what it's doing is universal, and what that does is capture cycles of violence within the tradition. And then people around the world with their different traditions do that. They capture violence within it. They don't understand how to include, be inclusive, how to rally around necessity. They go beyond necessity and they capture what's basically frivolousness, things that they like just because they like it, and they're willing to kill or die for those things that are not necessary. And so that's what I believe this theory does. It captures unnecessary perpetuations of the past and tries to say these are universal and keep them moving forward when what we need to do is be rid of them. So this is a vexed video. If you don't feel like hearing this kind of thing, skip on to the other philosophical videos, which will be much more laid back and building something, okay? Not always criticizing something. On to this thing. So while cruising around Reddit, I came across something called moral foundations theory. Right away, the context it was presented in was that progressives only care about preventing or avoiding harm. They don't care about anything else, while conservatives care about multiple principles. This may be somewhat unwanted attention by the creators. It notes on the website that these foundations are not meant to be considered quote-unquote good, but are simply post hoc descriptive foundations found throughout the world. The problem is it is implied that they are universal, when clearly in modern times some of them aren't, like a lot of the religiously founded foundations they mention. I think they made good points, but I also think they attach a bunch of extra and go way overboard with it. The Reddit conversation itself was disgusting and basically accused progressives as being okay with performing sexual acts on a dead chicken because it doesn't harm anybody. So you see the kind of context I discovered this framework out of? But I think the academics who put it together deserve a fair look at what they're saying. Although I'm not going to do that in this video. Given time constraints for YouTube and stuff, it's only going to be a 10-minute video, so I went far enough with it. To be honest, I'm just annoyed by this, so it's not really a fair look. It's just what I think from what I've seen. Right away, I'll say faith is not necessary, religion is not necessary or universal. So these foundations simply aren't universal. But if anything are post hoc descriptive conclusions, which is actually what they say on the website. That's moralfoundations.org. Moral foundations theory is a psychological theory developed by Jonathan Haidt, Jesse Graham, and Craig Joseph. It attempts to explain origins and variations in human moral reasoning. The theory suggests that there are several innate psychological systems or foundations that form the basis of moral judgments and values. These foundations are thought to be universal, but different cultures and individuals emphasize them to varying degrees, which can lead to differing moral perspectives. The 5 core moral foundations. Care and harm. Care and harm is focused on protecting others and preventing suffering and caring for the vulnerable. So this is definitely the mindset of like humanists or progressives, and I credit MFT for putting this as number 1. and they understand the importance of this, even though MFT tries to put other conditional foundations on the same level as this conditional foundation. I just recently did a video about how splitting concepts into multiple categories ends up destroying the power of the original concept. That's what I see happening here. If all it's supposed to be is a tool for evaluating cultures objectively, then I guess it's okay. But this just has too much agenda implication behind it. So that's how I'm treating it. It might very well be unwanted attention by the authors. I'm not diving that deep down the rabbit hole to see if the authors themselves are religious or right-wing or whatever. I'm not going that far. I don't want to spend that much time. Fairness and cheating. The focus of the Fairness and Cheating Foundation is justice, rights, and equality, treating others fairly, and resisting fraud and exploitation. I can definitely get behind this. It's super important. But people who support MFT have to understand faith is a form of cheating reality to serve oneself. So while I can get behind this, I think those that promote MFT want a self-serving version of this. Loyalty and betrayal. This focuses on group allegiance, loyalty, and patriotism, sticking with your group, family, or nation. Yes, all cultures have different versions of this, and the scale can be used to understand cultures. I'm totally behind that. Any faith-based action can be justified here with no evidence because it's on par with the loyalty betrayal expectation. Authority and subversion. The focus is on respect for tradition and legitimate authority, maintaining social order and respect for hierarchy. I agree in a sense that rule of law should be upheld, but most likely this concept will be misused to justify religious tyranny. The problem with this system is that it implies it's universal when what it is religious leaning. Not everybody is religious. Sanctity and degradation? Really? I mean, okay, so now you've just gone 100% religious and you've pulled things from the past because we can get past this. Making it a universal foundation attempts to carry it into the future. And that is an agenda when it comes to saying that it's universal. If you say it's universal, it isn't. You plan to carry it into the future even though it isn't. And that's the agenda of this list. Carrying religious particularity into the future as universal. And so humanists and what they call progressives don't do that, okay? They keep it limited to what's necessary and truly universal. That way there's no conflict tied up in it. That way it can move forward into the future fairly. It's something that we can hold on to. That's why we keep it limited. It's not like we don't pay attention to all these other things. We have to be fair to people that have different ideals. But we don't try to make them universal and then take that power for ourselves in order to enforce on other people. We separate the universal from the particular, and we know what's necessary and what's unnecessary, and we know to enforce the universal necessary. It's as simple as that. We all know that what this is they are pure and you are degraded. This is a disguised myself and the other. It's a masturbation. It's the disguised myself and the other masturbation. So the last one, liberty and oppression, is supposed to be optional. I don't know what that means. How do you have a list that's supposed to be universal and you've got one that's optional? Obviously pushed on by right-wingers. I mean, look at it. Liberty and oppression, really? Emphasis on individual freedom and resistance to tyranny. This is laughable again, right-wing agenda, as in they are distorting reality to justify imposing their purity on you. Yes, we all want to be free, and yes, we all deserve our fundamental human rights, but that's not what this is about. This is about parading particularity as universality. The source of all unjustified conflict is this insistence that my cultural particularities are universal, and everything I do is what everybody else should do, even though it deviates from necessity. If your cultural values were absolutely revolving around what's necessary and universal, then this attitude is okay. But it stops being okay when it carries over into the particularities of your geographical area. You try to enforce your cultural particularities as universal. That's when it becomes violence against other people that are different. And everybody has to understand that only universality and necessity can be enforced in such a way. Relativists don't understand that. They say nothing should be enforced, okay? Universal humanists understand it's what's necessary and universal. Religious people think particularity is universal, and they're willing to fight and kill and have wars and all this stuff in order to preserve their particularity as everybody's universal. And that's what's got to stop. You guys jump over to my video on universal humanism. I'll link it at the end of this video to be the automatic carryover, and you'll see what I have tried to do to limit particularity and universality. MFT can be used to justify anything. They've included too much and therefore give too much wiggle room for people, and it's basically just like a costume for relativism and power. The last one, the patriotism one, there's no real need for nationalism or any kind of tribalism. It may have been the thinking of the past, but if we solidify it as a universal, now we've saddled ourselves with it unnecessarily forever and deprived ourselves of the option of becoming better people. So in conclusion, I propose losing most of the foundations in favor of capturing true universality and not creating a situation where anything can be justified. I understand this is a tool to use to capture different ideas about different cultures, to understand them and to build bridges, but it's also being used to create extra. For instance, humanists absolutely consider all these factors constantly. Perspective is not one of other people need to fix this about themselves, but one of if you deviate too far in any of these scales and actually cause harm to others, you are culpable. Conservatives will create laws around this, enforcing the particularities of their ideas and excluding any other versions. In other words, conservatives need to learn to mind their own business until they absolutely can't, meaning there's harm going on. This harm includes social injustices too, like bullying. For instance, bullying's not acceptable. MFT needs to put a mind your own business foundation in there. I put care and honesty at the top the way they did, but I basically call them utility and integrity. Respect for the rule of law is necessary, as long as the laws serve everybody and are limited to true universals. So I can get behind the authority subversion foundation. All the other stuff falls under these few foundations: utility, honesty, rule of law. Nobody's ever going to be as free as they want. That goes for both legal regulation as well as financial possibility. The Liberty Oppression Foundation is nationalist nonsense. Nationalism is totally unnecessary. Even pragmatically, whatever gains you might get from it couldn't be justified given its destructive nature. Anyway, that's my view on MFT. It's clearly a religious projection. I respect the effort at the beginning when they started to do the right thing, but in the end, it just became a manipulative sales tactic. You guys, this is not representative of what the other videos will be. I might do one more after this from another subject that came up in that thread. And after that, it's just going to be back to chilled philosophy discussions. So in any videos like this, I'll put the vexed badge at the beginning. And I know actually a lot of these things, I'm going to cut out a lot of it. And I said a lot of things that, right, even at this moment, I'm thinking I shouldn't really go that far. And so I'm going to cut a lot of that out. But just understand, and in the end, the summary for this is just moralfoundation.org, and it's a religious power grab. And it started out to be something that probably was legit by some sociologists. And then later some religious people came in and said, hey, you're not representing our values. And so you see down towards the end of the list where all the religious values sort of crept in. And that's what killed it. Because it seems like the sociologists knew what was truly universal in the beginning. And then they towed the line for other people whose particularities are being sold as universal. And now that kills the entire thing. So they need to start a new one, which only does the top three that I said: utility, honesty, rule of law. Just have those as the top and then forget everything else. Okay, thank you guys. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you want to hear about philosophy, basic philosophy. Hopefully this video doesn't go viral. I don't want a bunch of angry religious people subscribing. Thank you.